How you living? How's the more focused world of work treating you?
It's all good. It's all good. General bullshit.
Okay.
Um, we just came back from we road tripped to Virginia, and I'll need you to guide me through the race because I watched the race
Mm,
late at night in a hotel room while also crushing hard on some work stuff.
of
And
course.
so, like, I was capturing maybe, well, I guess definitively the most exciting race of the season so far. Um, but
Well, John,
it it's still sort of like washed over me like a dream almost.
if it makes you feel better, the fact that your attention and focus was split between work and the broadcast, you may have been one of the few people to actually enjoy this broadcast. This was maybe maybe one of the worst directed races I've ever watched. Like, which is saying a lot because of the past few races, and then also all of the races we've watched in Monaco.
Yep.
This was like by far uh, the worst, which is like crazy to say because we were complaining about how bad it was last week that they just like didn't show, like quite literally didn't show Yuki Tsunoda. It's his home Grand Prix. They built up all this media, fanfare and all that stuff. Hey, you know what? Let's since we're in it, let's do it. Let's just do it.
Stay
Yeah,
in it.
let's
Let's
stay
just
in
stay in
it.
it.
Stay in it. Welcome to the F1 Files, folks. This is our Formula One podcast. Just a couple of best friends who have loved F1 so much and forever. And even when the sport does not love us back, even when the people who are supposed to be bringing us live broadcasts of the sport don't love us back. I'm one of the hosts. My name is Cory Willis. I'm a writer, actor, improviser out here in Los Angeles, California.
This is John Lepore, a creative consultant designing the future over at Black Box Infinite. All right, so we had the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was kind of off the chains,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit messy, as you've already been alluding to, particularly from a broadcast perspective.
Yes.
My brain is scrambled because I was watching it and enjoying it, but also like while in the midst of a family vacation
Mm-hmm.
and like, sneaking away late at night to watch it on a phone size screen in the, in the corner of a hotel room. Um,
Perfect.
Help me make sense of the mushiness that this wild kind of overflowing race was for me.
So just a real light over the free practices and qualifying. Not a ton to really report there, except for Jack Doohan doing fairly well in qualifying, at least in the first couple of sessions there, which was really impressive. Like, dude was like legitimately like top of the midfield for quite some time there. So that was pretty cool to see. Like he was in like P6, I think, in like by the end of the second session of qualifying, which considering he was embarrassingly bad in the earlier sessions in Japan. It was really, really impressive to see him bounce back like that. Um, Verstappen struggled pretty much all weekend. That's it's like a big story of the weekend is Verstappen and what happened after the Grand Prix, not just before and during, but after the Grand Prix. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. There's more very public Red Bull drama, like reported on firsthand account style by Ted Kravitz afterwards, being like, I just watched something crazy happen.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Real cool. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the Grand Prix itself was pretty good. The start of it was impressive. Piastri, first of all, just dominated all weekend. This is like, just like we've been saying, Johnny, this is Piastri's time. This is his year. He's going to run away with this championship. There's no one who can compete against him, including his own teammate. And
I don't understand how you and I are somehow mystical oracles that have been predicting this for, 6 months or more, but
yeah, yeah,
it's the first time that I've seen the mainstream F1 community all immediately start rallying around like, "Oh, Piastri's gonna be the
yeah,
world drivers champion for McLaren this
yeah.
season."
That's like, oh, like he's the team leader. He's clearly the more talented driver. It really it blows my mind that not only like the F1 community, but I guess like the betting community has like fully gone like, oh yeah, no, Piastri is the favorite as the champion this year now. Like it's no longer Lando Norris, which again, I mean, I guess because Lando kind of had like a who cares attitude towards the end of last year and was doing really well, he was the favorite. But Piastri is now consistent. He's got a chip on his shoulder, boy.
Yeah.
My God, does he ever have a chip on his shoulder? This is one of the things that I think pissed off so many people. Not think, I know because I saw like all the echoes of this on social media. They did a horrible job covering Oscar Piastri in this race. They didn't even show
Yeah.
him crossing the finish line.
Yeah, that's like the first time I feel like that's ever happened in F1. Like there's been many other scenarios where and usually it's not crossing the finish line, it's like the final 60 seconds of the race winner's lap. And there've
Mm-hmm.
definitely been times where I've been like, can we just see just the finish line part and just show us some of the other crazy action going on elsewhere on the track
Yeah.
and whatnot? But they smushed them into the little. They put baby in a corner
They put baby in the corner.
in the tiny
Ah,
little video box in the scoring and timing pylon
ah.
and
And focused on, and this is like, I never, it feels so crazy to me to have repeatedly given like credibility and backing to Max Verstappen and Max Verstappen's camp. But my God, did the British bias come through? Like they literally covered two British drivers in a not even battle. Like it like that was not going to be a battle at the end of the race. It just wasn't. Like there was no way that Norris had the pace to get him, and George was clearly dealing with an insane amount of issues, technical issues that had knock-on effects with other teams. But like he was still driving perfectly in that car. Not doing the panic George Russell towards the end of the Grand Prix that we were seeing last year, where he would make these boneheaded mistakes or be like a little overzealous in his pursuit of the next step on the podium or a race win or a step on the podium. He was just driving very smoothly, just being like, "Hey, my car's falling apart. Hey, lights on the dash don't work. Hey, I have no telemetry. By the way, my DRS isn't working anymore. Yeah, and like laughing with duds, being like, "I just hope the steering wheel doesn't fall off," because that's another thing that happened, Johnny.
for Fernando Alonso's steering wheel came off in his
Came
hand
off.
during it was practice, right?
Yep. Yep. Completely, and it might have been Fernando being a little, like a little like, hey, let me show you the problem I'm dealing with, because he like pulled the steering wheel off in a part of the track where he was able to like have a lot of runoff area, and he was going very slow into that corner because he was dealing with the steering wheel already. But anyways,
I mean, if
that's
you listen though, if you
yeah,
listen to the onboard, it does sound like Fernando, most senior, experienced, and generally pretty casual of all the drivers, it does sound as though pulling the steering wheel off while on track scared him to death. Like
Yeah,
he's like hyperventilating for like 15 seconds after getting the steering wheel remounted.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he was. It's crazy that these things are happening. Like every person who was covering it, every media outlet, every social media post has been like, "Yeah, I've never seen that happen, or even heard of that happening in a modern Formula One car,
Yeah.
or even like the old Formula One cars. Like that wasn't happening then because they weren't quick release steering wheels in like the old era. But anyways, George is struggling like crazy, but driving perfect. Lando Norris struggling like crazy on tires with his tire degradation, and that was like that he was never going to catch George at the end of the race. So they never showed Piastri crossing the line in like the big screen. It's like, dude, you can't show your bias that aggressively. You
Yeah.
just can't. Um, like I get if you want to like highlight some really impressive moves by like an Oliver Behrman who is a rookie and a Brit. I get that. That's totally fine. That he's someone who is very impressive and is basically the future of British motor racing. From what I can tell, like
Yeah.
he's got all the things that people hate about George Russell. Like Ollie Behrman is the exact opposite of them, and he's a good driver. So it's really he is the future. So I get why they may kind of favor him a little bit, but favoring these guys in a race that was so critical. This is Bahrain, like the Bahraini Sovereign Wealth Fund has a controlling ownership of McLaren. This is the Bahrain Grand Prix. McLaren has never won the Bahrain Grand Prix. They've never won their home. This is, in essence, their home
Right.
Grand Prix. So, how are you not going to show the winner of the home Grand Prix, like who's driving a car that was funded and built and developed by the country that the race is being held in, when there's the Crown Prince of Bahrain doing a grid walk with Domenicali, uh, and oh, Montezuma was there too. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that was wild to see all the old. I mean, it's all money. It's all money, Johnny. This is you see the old heads come out, much like we were talking about last week. When the money's around, you're like, that's why I'm seeing all these people here who are like legends within the sport, famous and infamous. Um, so yeah, that was the overall takeaway from the Grand Prix was tons of action, really impressive, tons of passes. This is like a track that people are like, it's not really that good. But this year,
It showed up. It
it
showed
sh-
up
it
for
really
it. Yeah.
did, and I agree. I agree with the majority of the fan base. This is usually a bit of a snooze fest because in the past they've held it immediately after testing, and like that's been I think one of the issues, right? Because the cars are locked in after testing. We pretty much know the race pace. We pretty much know the single lap pace. We know the conditions. The conditions haven't changed from the 2 weeks before. Then we have the race a couple of weeks afterwards. It was also special because Bahrain was such a weird testing venue this year with cold temperatures. And
Yep.
then this race was one of the hottest races of the season so far. So, like, it was just a recipe for a perfect Grand Prix. And it could have been covered so much better by F1 TV and Sky and like, it was just clear that they just fumbled. Like, they didn't show, like, they never showed like any of the action. I'm just trying to think of like a single thing that they did a good job on, where it was like, oh, clearly there is like something about to happen. Like they did this in Japan too, where they didn't show Lando and Max battling in the pit lane. Like you just see like the tail end of that. And then they had to like show replay after replay. And it was like, wait, you had cameramen watching them? You had cameramen watching them the whole time. And the broadcast director was like, oh, they're leaving pit lane at the same time and they're fighting for the win against each other. And they're championship contenders. We should probably cut to some action on track. It's like, no,
Yep.
show that. My God, you're not showing, unless you were going to cut to Yuki Tsunoda in that moment to show him in his home Grand Prix. That would be an excuse to not show what was inevitably going to happen with two cars going into one space. So it was the broadcast has been bad. This was like egregiously bad. Like it's as if they don't, it's as if they've never watched like motor sports before. It's they're like, oh, get the cool fast cars, and it's like there's so much more. Don't just
I
uh,
I have a little sympathy. I recently got, the opportunity to spend some time close to some motorsports broadcasters,
mm-hmm.
and it is, compared to traditional sports, or at least through that lens, it's unbelievably complex.
Mm-hmm.
There's like infinite more variables, and you don't have one ball that you're trying to follow with the camera. You have 20 balls
Yeah.
that you have to figure out, on the fly, which one is the most important. But
And they're all interacting with each other and like competing against each other. That's a good point. That's a really good point, Johnny.
but it does seem like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
I almost think that, like, there's a chance that the broadcast team was like lulled into complacency by the last couple of races,
Yeah.
and we're just like, okay, this is just going to be pretty easy. And then they show up to this one and it's like Saving Private Ryan, and they're just,
Yes. Yeah.
uh I can imagine it was, afterwards, once the race was completed, there was just like a bunch of sweaty people standing at, or sitting at their consoles, all just like, did we make it to the end? Did
Yeah.
we survive?
Is it over? Yeah, I mean I can
And
appreciate
and
that.
presumably there's someone on the team who had to immediately take on a job that didn't exist during the normal broadcast, which was
Mm-hmm.
basically being solely in charge of hand placing George Russell's,
Yeah.
tile on the
Yeah.
pylon, and like literally being like, okay, it's now my job to make sure that this thing is in the correct place, because the data and the telemetry that normally drives this stuff in a completely automated way
Mm-hmm.
is no longer
No,
functioning
yeah.
and doing
It's
its job.
on the fritz. Yeah, which that again, this is one of those things where every once in a while, like a tiny technical problem will show up in the sport. And it just becomes so obvious, like how fast everyone is moving and how tight of a ship it is when like you don't notice any like things out of order. Um yeah, that I mean when George, like just out of nowhere, like George did drop to the bottom and it said he was out and I was like, "Oh, but this is the problem, John. It was late enough in the race. There was enough that had happened already with the broadcast where it was kind of like, okay, what the hell is going on here? And then they didn't show George Russell like pulling over to the side of the road or pulling into the pit lane and getting like backed into the garage, which is what you would normally see
Yep.
happen when
Yep.
someone exits the race. But because they were doing such a poor job at covering what was happening on like on screen and on track, I did just assume I was like, okay, George Russell is out. Like he's fully out of the race. Like
Yeah.
I just took it at face.
we'll see a replay in 8 minutes
Yeah,
that will
yeah,
explain what happened. Yeah.
yeah. When a battle is heating up, they will very quickly flash to a slow motion replay of his car, like just slowly, like pulling to the side of the road, and then we'll cut back, and like 5 or 6 other passes will have been made. Um, so that was annoying, but also I appreciate how difficult that was and how on the fly that is, and how, like, not on the fly, on how, like, how difficult it is to execute that at a live sporting event. Because again, like you said, John, it's like there's not one ball that everyone's focusing on. Like everyone else has to be kept account of in relation to everyone else. So the fact that George Russell was demanding that much attention, I'm sure other stuff, like people were pulled away from jobs that they needed to be doing in the moment. Um, which, yeah, it sucks. That sucks. However, they haven't done themselves any favors over the past few races. So it's like that, like the Chicken Little thing, where it's like, okay, you can say that you were having a tough time, but like, what happened at the other 3 Grand Prix? Can you explain that then? Like the other 3 Grand Prix and the sprint race, where Hamilton fans here, right? We're big Hamilton fans. I'm very happy that they covered Lewis Hamilton for that entire sprint race. They kept on him. However, that there were 19 other cars on track that they really didn't show much of. So I as a biased fan, I can be like, I don't know, I don't like that. Uh, but I do kind of like it because they showed my guy for much longer than I expected them to. Uh, let's. So the race was the race, Johnny. You saw highlights of it. There weren't a ton of things that like stood out that much. Um, just because there was so much happening that it there were no like real standout moments.
Mhm.
That said, it wasn't like a fatiguing Grand Prix where it was just like, okay, that felt like 3 races happened just now, and I'm cross-eyed. I can't,
Yeah.
like, I don't even remember my own name. Like it wasn't one of those races. It was just a very competitive, aggressive strategy race. Like during the second stint, this is a 2-stop race because of the degradation. There were every other than wet compounds, there were different tires being run by different teams in every single stint. You could look at the pylon and see that there not at no time were there only 2 compounds on the screen. Like someone was always running a soft, someone was always running a medium, someone was always running a hard. And it was just like, I think maybe for a brief moment in the second stint, maybe everyone was on like mediums or hards. But start of the race, we had people on soft tires. It was really impressive to see this. Really impressive to see Hamilton perform as well as he did in this race, Johnny.
Mhm.
There, okay. So I there's some nerdiness here. I'm gonna get into here a little bit. I've written some stuff down because post race analysis was critical for this. So first of all, Lewis, I texted you on Friday. I knew that you were on the go, and I knew you weren't going to be able to pay attention. But I texted you, letting you know that I think that they have more or less sorted out the communication issues. Like Hamilton has capitulated and understands now that Ricky is going to repeat almost everything twice. Like that's just going to happen. That's okay. I think the reason he was struggling with it and so annoyed with it is because he was giving him too much information and then also giving that information a second time. So they've eliminated kind of everything that was back and forth that was like, okay, I've been listening to Lewis's radio for a long time. He's never wanted that information. He's never needed that information. And then also the critical information that he's asking for is like gap ahead. what's my pace relative to the other car and to the leaders. Like those are that's what he usually wants at least every couple of laps, even when he's not in a battle. Even when he's leading, he's like, hey, where am I losing time? Like there are some things he wants. And it seems as though he and Ricky have worked that out. Like there was very little, hey, I need this from you. Like sharp, like almost demanding, like, hey, we talked about this before the race and now you're not doing it. Whereas in the past few Grand Prix, it does feel like that was kind of happening back and forth. So happy with that. Very happy with that. Very happy with Lewis's performance during the race. He's still struggling in qualifying. That's fine. I get it. He's working his way up. Okay. After the race, there were like a couple things that were said. First of all, he's only 3/10 slower than Charles at this point. When the season started, he was 7/10 slower per lap.
It's
So within
progress.
that's a ton of progress, dude. Like that is so much progress in such a short amount of time where it's like, uh-oh, Charles, he may catch you and may start driving faster than you and may have like a quicker lap average. Now, the reason I say this is because, John, you've played enough video games with cars in them. I know this. You've played enough video games where you've had to upgrade cars on the campaign. What's the thing that matters the most when it comes to like getting an understanding of and upgrading?
I mean, it's usually your tires.
Yep, nailed it, John. That's it. That's it. It's the most boring thing. I know that's why I know why you hesitate because you're like,
You
yeah,
don't
it's
want
the
me to talk about
tires. We don't want
tires,
to talk
Dan.
about
There's so many
tires here.
exciting things in
There's
video
so many,
games.
but this is the most critical thing that you can do when upgrading your car. You can't change the engine output because if you overclock your engine, your tires aren't going to be able to handle that grip and you're just not going to perform well, right? So you can't, it's all about tires and suspension and then working your way up to like balance, weight reduction, and then eventually you bore that thing out and make it as fast and as quick as possible. So this race, Johnny, uh Lewis's tire degradation, okay? There's like a map that they do where it's like, okay, over the course of the Grand Prix, you average this much degradation per lap. And the way that they measure that is how much time you're losing relative to when your tires were fresh, right? So the difference between Lewis's lap times when he had fresh tires and at the end of his stint was 0.0115 seconds. So that's, what is that?
What?
One hundredth of a second.
How?
Okay. Okay. That's crazy. That's crazy.
How are you like how? Yeah, how are you getting that kind of consistency?
Yeah. Then the other drivers, Charles Leclerc ended up losing zero point zero 0.09. So almost a whole tenth. That's what he averaged as far as like degradation.
And I mean,
Lando,
even that isn't that bad. Like even
no, no,
that's like
no.
pretty good and standard. But to think that
Mm-hmm.
Lewis is, what, like 1/8,
Yes.
that's crazy.
Lando Norris driving a car which is known to be amazing on its tires, incredible on tire degradation. Lando Norris lost 0.15. So lost 10 times more lap
Damn,
time than Lewis lost in an
damn.
in a superior car that is known to be good on its tires versus the Ferrari, which is known to be a little bit temperamental with the way that they have to deal with their tires. So Johnny, Lewis is absolutely going to catch Charles, and I have a firm belief that he's probably going to end up catching the McLarens by the end of the season, if not earlier than that. If he's losing less time, a tenth of the lap time that Lando Norris is losing over the course of a race, if he starts qualifying a little bit further up the field, this man is going to end up on podiums and is going to end up on the top step. Like that he's going to be fighting against Oscar eventually. So that's one of the things that is critical to me. Okay, Johnny, that all by itself, really, really impressive.
That
Here's
is a lot.
another fact that is mind blowing. Okay, Lewis Hamilton in the pen afterwards was lamenting about, it's a different car. It's like different, I'm driving different. It's, it takes a lot to learn. Um, like for instance, the Ferrari uses engine braking. I've never used engine braking in an F1 car.
Mm.
John, Lewis's style is to drive as hard and as fast and be as late on the brakes as is humanly possible. That is like a notorious thing. That's like one of the only things about his driving style that people can be like, yep, set your watch to that. He's going to go as deep in the corner as possible. It's one of the reasons he's been struggling with the ground effect cars, because you need a little bit more consistent braking, and engine braking is usually the key to that. Or at least you roll off the throttle and then you hit the brakes and carry a little bit of speed through the mid corner. Lewis doesn't do that. He V's off corners. He goes as deep into corners as possible and then gets on the power to get out of that corner as quick as possible. The fact that he's been doing that for 15 years without engine braking, so just driving foot to the floor, waiting to the last possible moment, and then slamming on the brakes.
Yep.
And that's how he's won this many championships. That's like that is mind blowing to me. That's the way he's been driving, and now he's in a car where he's like, "Oh, I've never driven an F1 car like this before. Never. All new engine settings, all new way of driving a car, whole new setup, different power unit, different everything, literal different language that I'm having to learn to
Right.
communicate like what I'm feeling in this car." And he's gaining that much time on Charles already within 4 Grand Prix. Like what he's doing right now, I believe we're going to look back on and be like, that is unbelievable what he accomplished in that short of a time at a new team. I mean, he had what? 9 weeks? 9 weeks before he hopped in his first Ferrari?
Yep.
Right?
But even still, I mean, the actual like seat time
Yeah.
is so extraordinarily limited. Like it's so limited. Like
Tiny.
every second of seat time that he has is broadcast globally. We've seen
Exactly.
it all.
We've
And there's,
witnessed it.
yeah.
I'm really, really impressed with Lewis's
I've also
progress.
never heard of there being like engine braking versus no engine braking. Like it's just never even come up on my radar. And like,
No.
yeah, that's a huge characteristic in the way that the car is going to feel, especially on the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge,
Mm.
like when you are in, like, not, I know you know this, but when people are in their cars and they're driving an automatic car, like with automatic transmission, the automatic transmission is deploying engine braking in order to slow your car down in addition to your brakes. It's like a process that you don't even notice. When you're driving a manual car, you do notice. That's when you downshift and then literally the RPMs spike, the engine's working a little bit harder, and then you let the engine literally apply its own physics that cause braking. So that's engine braking. So we've all done it. We're all aware of it. We've all been in vehicles that do it. I think the only thing that doesn't do it would be an electric vehicle, but even they have regenerative.
Yeah, they have regen, which will basically simulate or even do a more aggressive version of that.
Exactly. So everyone has experienced this in some way, shape, or form. The fact that Lewis has been driving these cars, which means that George is driving this car with no engine braking.
Yep.
That means that Kimi Antonelli is driving a car with no engine braking. It really is like wildly impressive. Every other team uses engine braking. Every other team does. It's just like the reason why we're both so flabbergasted by this, John, is because we've just assumed that that was what was happening in the Mercedes. We've just assumed that that was what was happening in the McLaren when he was driving it. But it was clear, like, as people who know cars and know how cars work, it's just like it blows my mind that it didn't even occur to me that it was like, oh yeah, he doesn't use engine braking. He just
Yep.
drives as fast as he can, hits the brakes, stands on the brake pedal, and then stands back on the loud pedal and screams out of the corner. So bananas, truly bananas. I think that like really needs to be like looked at uh, within the context of him learning this new car, within the context of him like changing teams. Is not only is he changing teams, there's also like the Brembo brakes versus CI, which is like Compound Industries, I think. That's like the brakes that he's been using on the that he had been using on Mercedes and McLaren, and now he's switched to a different, literal different company. So he's experiencing as much of a difference in machinery as is possible. He's going from German and British engineering and design to Italian engineering and design. Like they just come at this from entirely different perspectives, and it's just it blows my mind that he's able to that he's been able to get up to speed this quickly. Really, really impressive. Um, so yeah, the DRS thing. Apparently, George Russell in the in the race itself was struggling with DRS and ended up opening it by accident because he was manually having to trigger DRS. Basically, like duds or a performance engineer would come over the line and be like, DRS. Just like tell him to hit it and he would like actuate it. And that was all based on like, okay, we are literally having to use like stopwatches at the team to see how close you are to the car in
Right.
front of you, because if you're more than a second, you're not allowed to use it. And he accidentally used it at one point and then had to like slow down in another corner like extra to let Lando Norris catch up. So this is one of the issues here. Lando Norris didn't know when to use DRS either, because that's all based on the telemetry that's coming from the car ahead, but the car ahead wasn't pinging. So,
So in this scenario,
mhm.
this is I'm curious if this is like, oh, is this a Mercedes telemetry problem or is this an FIA telemetry problem?
I think
Because
it's one of those.
DRS has got to be all, regulated and controlled.
Yeah. So I don't know for sure, but I assume that just like the crash structures are created by McLaren and then everyone else uses them, like it's one of probably like a standardized part that's made by
Yeah.
one of the teams and then is like homologated and given to the other teams.
Yeah, I
I'm
guess because it's not
assuming.
the teams all sharing their own version of telemetry. It's got to
Yeah.
be consistent so that everything meshes together
Yeah.
nicely. And then otherwise, each team would be like, oh, we use a slightly different, like, rounding calculation on that 1 second gap for DRS that we think is slightly more advantageous to us.
Exactly. Exactly. It just opens the door for like, tomfoolery,
Shenanigans. Yeah.
or shittery. Haven't haven't uh haven't brought up shittery recently. Because there hasn't been that much relative to what we've seen in the past. So that was what was happening. Also, Charles Leclerc apparently opened his DRS when he wasn't supposed to at a certain point. So this is not a thing that has never happened before or doesn't happen. It's just every once in a while it can happen. If you get an advantage, you're supposed to give it back, and that's usually communicated between, I believe, like the sporting director of the team and the FIA, or like the stewards. Is like, hey, we saw that you opened your DRS a little bit early on this lap. You need to like, we need that time back. So you got to brake a little bit earlier into whatever corner to get that time back, so as to not have an unfair advantage over the other teams. All right, Johnny. So Red Bull, Red
Yeah,
Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull.
give me the rundown here.
Max Verstappen is not happy. Unsurprising, considering what's going on with the car. Apparently, he's so unhappy. He did something which he never does. Neither does anyone from like the Verstappen, like him or his dad. They don't do this. They delegated to Max's manager, and Ted Kravitz said that he saw Max's manager basically screaming in Helmut Marko's face, while Helmut Marko just stood there and took it. Like, did not rebuff him, did not try to explain himself, but was just like, it was an animated conversation that happened outside of the Red Bull hospitality. And like, at the end of this, homeboy, like, I don't know if he like tore his paddock pass off, but apparently he like ripped his paddock pass off in this like, oh, I'm done with this, and like stormed out of the paddock afterwards. So,
So what? All right. So what's going on there? Like, I would expect,
mhm,
I would be, I mean, I'd be excited by, but not super surprised that this would be happening, say, directed at Horner.
yeah,
But to Helmut Marko, who's been considered part of the Verstappen inner circle
uh huh,
more than he even is to, Christian Horner and Red Bull at large.
very much so. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's
All is
something.
not well.
No, no, and I think one of the reasons, maybe one of the reasons why, is because Yuki has showed up and done so well so quickly that maybe the team is now starting to go like, all right, let's like start to take some feedback from the other driver and maybe start to like set the car up a little bit more relative to both drivers instead of just one driver. Because that's like the biggest thing with Verstappen, right? That was like the biggest thing with that early, like the early beef between him and Sergio, was Papa Verstappen like freaked out because there was any sort of favor given to Sergio Perez. That there was any, and by favor I mean that they were like, oh no, Sergio, we know you accidentally crashed in Monaco in qualifying and basically sabotaged Max's run in qualifying, and ended up winning that race. Like, we trust that you may have made a mistake and it wasn't intentional. And the Verstappens freaked out over that. And we're like, that was intentional. You better not ever act like someone is better than Max, or that they could ever make a
Yeah.
mistake, and wouldn't direct it at Max. And Max is the one who needs to be listened to at all times in this team. And if you're not listening to us, we'll take our ball and go home. Like, that was that argument then. So I can only assume that if anyone is going like, oh yeah, Yuki's doing okay, like anyone praising Yuki's performance at all, or like giving credence to the things that he's criticizing about the car that Max may like or something. This is, again, Johnny, this is all speculation. It wasn't, Ted Kravitz saw this. He didn't report any of the actual things that were being said. He just reported on the vibe that he caught from that conversation. I have to assume that there's trouble at Red Bull that hasn't existed in a while. And it's a new type of trouble.
I mean, this is
Um,
a new type,
mhm.
but there's been a lot of other it's been a bumpy 18 months
Yeah, it has.
for Red Bull, sure as hell. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, this does feel like uh, this could be the end of Max and Red Bull for sure.
Yeah.
This could be the straw breaking the camel's back. This could be, if there's frictions between Max and Helmet, that's no bueno. And obviously, there's been, I mean, even just everything around Red Bull culture
Mhm.
and engineering has been keep Max
Mhm.
happy,
Yeah.
make sure Max doesn't feel threatened, right?
Mhm.
Like all of these factors, like that's the way this team has been operating. So yeah,
Like when he throws his toys out of the sandbox, you quietly pick the toy up and put it back in
yeah,
the sandbox and don't make eye contact
yeah.
with it.
Don't make eye
Like,
contact. No eye
like
contact.
that's the way they treat Max and his camp. So another thing that's beautiful about this is George has been doing so well at Mercedes that Toto is now openly being like, we are trying to get George locked down on a long-term contract. Like that was in the past week. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, that's we're doing that with George," which has is a complete and total shift in what he was doing where he was saying, "We're openly courting Max Verstappen." Openly. And we all know that he's not going to give up a Kimi Antonelli for a Max Verstappen. Like why
Yep.
give up the new model for the old one?
Yeah.
George was always the one who was going to be on the chopping block there. And the fact that Toto is now openly being like, I want to get pen to paper with George as quick as possible. He's the future of Mercedes. Now basically is a signal flare saying, hey, we don't really need Max. We don't really want Max at the team. And with this kind of like the shenanigans of his manager yelling in Helmut Marko's face, I don't think that's what Toto wants at Mercedes. I don't think he wants to bring energy like that into the team. Why would you bring energy like that into the team? You've got stiff upper lip George Russell, and then you got like, the young jokester Kimi Antonelli. Like, there's no room for someone who's a jerk in that team. There just isn't. Well, there is, and his name is Toto Wolff. So that's the only person who's allowed to be a jerk on that, on that crew. Um, Oh, Johnny, did you hear about the FIA drama? Let's round this out with the FIA garbage, the
Oh boy.
trash. Oh boy, indeed. Um, so did you hear about what has happened?
Yeah, there we've got more people dropping
Mm-hmm.
off, more leaves being shaken from the
Mm-hmm.
FIA tree.
Yeah. This wasn't a leaf, John. This was literally the deputy president of the FIA. This was MBS's right hand man. And my God, did like, I'm not going to read the statement out because it's a long statement. But basically, this dude said, hey, I came here in order to make sure that there was a professional, consistent, trustworthy leadership. That is not possible right now here at the FIA. So I need to step down because personally, I can't go to sleep at night knowing the decisions I'm making are bad for the sport. Like that is
Yep.
in essence what the message was that he delivered. And again, John, there's only one person at the FIA who has more power than him, who exists in a leadership position that would potentially affect someone below them. And that's MBS. That's him. He's the one. So this is great news because Robert Reed is the last person to be in an election against MBS. He ran for president last time against MBS. So with him stepping down, it now basically affords him the opportunity to go like, hey, I'm going to run for president of the FIA again. And I stepped down because the previous president wasn't doing a good job leading and has pissed everyone off, not just in F1, but in every other racing series that we have governorship over. We've infuriated people to the point of where they are not holding press conferences anymore. So, I mean, they fined Carlos Sainz 10,000 euros because he had diarrhea.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that's crazy. That's he missed like the first like 2 or 3 seconds of the Japanese national anthem because he was quite literally about to his racing suit. And he got fined 10,000 euros. Not $10,000. Got fined like almost like $18,000 because he had diarrhea, which is insane. That's insane.
I yeah, I mean, and you read about like some of the details
Mm-hmm.
with this where Robert's basically being like, like they're shoving like NDAs in front of his face
Mm-hmm.
and giving him no time to like, make amendments or whatnot, or even when he's trying to say like, "Oh, I'll sign this as long as you just make these changes," and they're just like, "Nope, you're out of the meeting now. We're locking the door without you and whatnot." Like these are very aggressive. I mean, this is like pretty typical kind of like bullying techniques
Yes.
that are used in these spaces, and it's also just a clear sign of the sort of like Trumpification of the
Yep.
FIA, and just and this is the thing that I'm always increasingly concerned about, is just people in positions of power just thinking that like, oh, this is a new era where
Mm-hmm.
you can just muscle your way through anything and everything. And so I'm super happy that Robert Reed is stepping down, that he's potentially competition. I've heard also murmurs of like maybe Susie Wolf will run
Yep.
against MBS,
That's the other thing.
and
That's oh baby with that. So
that
what are your thoughts on that, Johnny? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. I think being the president of the FIA is like, it's also kind of like being that second seat at Red Bull. Like it's
Yeah.
just like, it's being the referee, and that's never a pleasant place for anyone. I
Mm-hmm.
think you're always going to have a tough time there, but yeah, obviously there's there's just some weird shady,
Yeah.
you know, uh, borderline nefarious stuff that we've been hearing about coming out of the FIA, and just
Yeah.
like the whims of like overinflated, power grabs and whatnot. It's got to be reined in.
Yeah.
They got to get their house under control, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that it's pretty simple to get a new figure in place. I don't know who votes for the president of the FIA.
Yeah. I
I don't know how
don't
that works,
know. Yeah.
but I
Yeah. Me
have to
neither.
imagine that there's, it just seems like it's been nothing but increasing friction
Mm-hmm.
between FIA and Formula One, between
Yeah.
the governing body and the sport that it governs. And it's not just, refereeing the sport, but it's also helping with, creating things that typically the sport, gets very enthusiastic about and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
I mean, the FIA is the reason that seatbelts exist in India. You know what I mean? Like like there's a lot of good that that governing body can and will do under the right leadership. There's also a lot of harm that it can and will do under the wrong leadership, and I think that's what we've seen. Even to the point of where him throwing us the nugget of like, hey, let's bring back V10s. I didn't even consider this. The reason Honda is sticking around and signing on with Aston Martin is because they said they were going with the hybrid motors. So this doesn't just screw over Audi. This could potentially screw over Aston Martin and break ties with Honda on like a permanent basis. Because again, Honda did not want to stay in the sport, even with Max Verstappen being as winning as he is, even with their, Red Bull powertrains taking on the IP of Honda Motors and taking that and owning that and developing under their own name, that is not sweet enough if they lose the ability to sell customer cars, because that's what this is all about for Honda. That's what this is all about for Audi, is putting their name on a car that is at the peak of motorsports, that travels the world and shows that it's good and reliable and safe. And if they can't honestly go like, oh yeah, the things that we put in these F1 cars will have like a trickle down into the technology that you have in your car that you drive your family in, then it makes it a lot harder for Honda to spend billions of dollars uh, on being in a sport that is basically saying like, huh, well, we did sign a contract, we did agree, to a thing with you, but now we're just going to go back on our word, and like, there's nothing anyone can do about it. So like, that's again, this is MBS setting the standard for this, right? Which is again like, you, you can't you can't take the ripples out of the water. Once a leader does something like this and is not checked by the powers that be, they then feel emboldened to do other things. And the people who cross them or run afoul of them go like, yeah, I'm never going to be a partner with that person again. They're just going to betray me like they did last time. And when I turn and go, hey, remember, we all made, like, you saw us shake hands and no one says anything. Why would those people come back to the table? Why would they ever want to bring their money back to the table or put their money in the pot or put their reputation on the line? Because this will make Audi and Honda look weak. Ultimately, if they have to back out of F1, the story is going to be they backed out of the peak of
Yeah.
motorsport again.
Yep. Yep.
So let's get MBS out of there. Susie Wolf, I'm not so sure you're the best fit just because your husband owns part of Formula One.
There's I mean, listen, this is yeah, we're still I
Yeah.
think we're still like looking for like, oh, who's the most ethical billionaire,
Yep.
and it's
Yeah.
it's it's going to be a slippery slope either way, and that's assuming that MBS can get voted out, and it does sound
Yeah.
as though he's worked pretty hard to insulate himself or find ways to protect himself with various alliances and whatnot. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot out there in the world. Well, we're at the end of our time here, Johnny. Where's your blood pressure at post Bahrain Grand Prix and pre the knife, pre Saudi Grand Prix?
My blood pressure was pretty good coming out of the race after talking about the FIA that made my blood pressure spike a
Yeah, a
little
little bit.
bit,
Yeah.
but
Sorry about that. Yeah.
my blood pressure is my ragu is starting to coagulate, and it's just it's getting
Mhm.
excited for the fact that yeah, it's race week.
Yeah.
We've got and due to my travel induced delays and whatnot, we are tomorrow
Tomorrow. Yeah. It's
back
media day.
into
Yeah.
race
Yeah.
weekend
Yep. Yep.
mode. Like we're full on right back in it.
Yeah.
So excited, excited to be back in the mix, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what we got at Jeddah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the same pot. I'm coagulating. I'm thickening up. I'm ready. I'm ready for the meal. I'm ready for all the action. This is going to be a very fun race to watch for qualifying. This is another race that could be really fun to watch over the course of the Grand Prix itself, or it could be a little bit of a dud. It could, but it's a high speed track and it's at night. and it's right next to the water. Like, it's gorgeous. Everything about this race is like beautiful. The Saudis have they're putting on a show, and that show is like mwah, chef's kisses, presentable. So I'm excited for it. My blood pressure is pretty good. I mean, I'm a little stressed out over the FIA stuff, but also it's kind of like, yeah, there's it's kind of hard to be stressed out over like,
We have to accept
yeah,
a
there's
lot of
a lot of tyranny.
extremely imperfect, yeah,
Uh-huh.
solutions in our present reality.
Yeah, so, hopefully this is one that, like, when it plays out, I don't look back and go like, "Oh, man, it happened again." Um, so yeah, blood pressure isn't perfect. It is coming down, but also there's a little bit of a spike. Like, someone just dropped like an encyclopedia on the library floor. Like, it just
Yep.
like, but it's the library, so it's going to go back to the way it is. Hey, Johnny, where can the folks find you out there in the world?
You can always track me down via my home base of blackboxinfinite.com. Cory, where can the folks find you?
CoryPWillis.com is the website for me. And then also Burn Cory Burn on all the social media and the F1 files on all that stuff as well. Folks, we are going to catch up with you next time, just like you'll catch up with us next time on the F1 files.